He counsels mockery, the diplomatic chamber of Galactic Trade Station, Omega-7, buzzed with alien voices as Captain Alina Vasquez stepped through the airlock. Her black uniform looked plain against the rainbow of colors that filled the massive hall. Beings from dozens of worlds had gathered to meet Earth's first official representative to the Galactic Trade Council. Alina had spent months preparing for this moment. Earth needed these trade routes. Humanity's colonies were growing, but they desperately needed resources and technology that only galactic trade could provide. She carried the hopes of billions on her shoulders. Along with detailed presentations of Earth's offerings to the galactic community, the chamber itself was a marvel of engineering. Crystalline walls curved upward into a dome that showed images of space outside the station. Floating platforms held delegates from species Alina had only read about in classified reports. Some looked like living gems, others resembled metallic trees, and a few appeared to be made of organized energy patterns. Ambassador Zix, the station's trade coordinator, gestured with one of its 6 crystalline arms toward a central platform. The being's body caught light and split it into beautiful rainbow patterns as it moved. Alina had studied Zixnine's species extensively. The Prism Collective valued efficiency and practical solutions above all else. They should appreciate Earth's straightforward approach to problems. Honored delegates, Zixnine's voice resonated through translation devices worn by every being present. We welcome the humans to present their military capabilities and trade offerings. Alina activated her holographic display unit. Images of Earth's colonial defense force filled the air above her head. She had chosen these images carefully to show humanity's best technology. Sleek destroyers with railgun arrays, carriers launching, fighter squadrons, and the pride of the fleet, the heavy cruiser Yamamoto with its advanced missile systems. The first reaction came from the Vorthan delegation. Commander Thane, a 7-foot-tall reptilian being with scales that shifted from green to silver, leaned forward in his floating chair. His species had conquered 12 star systems, using what humans would consider magical technology, weapons that manipulated gravity and time itself. These vessels, Thane said, his translated voice carrying clear amusement, they use chemical propulsion. How wonderfully primitive. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults might make when watching children play with toy soldiers. Alina had expected this reaction, but it still stung. Every ship in those displays represented years of human engineering and sacrifice. A delegate from the Ethereal Confederacy, a being that looked like organized starlight, pulsed with colors that the translator rendered as gentle mockery. They fire metal projectiles at their enemies. How charmingly direct. Do they also use sharp sticks for close combat? More laughter filled the air. Alina noticed that even the usually serious quantum monks were making their species equivalent of amused sounds. High-pitched tones that reminded her of wind chimes in a storm. ZYX-9 gestured for silence, but Alina could see the rainbow patterns dancing across its crystalline body with a Prism Collective's version of barely contained amusement. Perhaps the human representative can explain the advantages of these ... traditional approaches to warfare. Alina had faced hostile audiences before, but never quite like this. During her 20 years in Earth's Navy, she had commanded submarines. In the Pacific and Arctic Oceans, she understood what it meant to be underestimated. Submarines were often dismissed by surface fleet commanders until they proved their worth in actual combat. Honored delegates, she began, keeping her voice steady. Human military doctrine emphasizes reliability and adaptability. Our weapons, Systems function in any environment and require minimal maintenance. They can be repaired with basic tools and operate independently of complex power systems. Commander Thane's scales shifted to a deeper shade of silver, which Elena's cultural briefings had told her indicated condescending patience. Dear Captain, your concern for maintenance is admirable, but modern warfare requires weapons that can adjust to any threat. Our gravity disruptors can reshape themselves mid-battle. Our time dilation fields make enemy weapons fire in slow motion. What happens when your metal projectiles meet shields that exist in multiple dimensions? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Alina had read reports about Vorthon weapons technology. Their ships could indeed manipulate space-time around themselves, creating defensive fields that made them nearly invulnerable to conventional attacks. On paper, human weapons seemed laughably inadequate against such technology. We adapt, Alina said simply. Human military history shows that simple, reliable weapons often outlast complex systems that can be disrupted or turned against their users. This statement caused another wave of amusement. A delegate from the machine consensus, a robotic species that had uploaded their consciousness into mechanical bodies millennia ago, spoke with a voice like grinding metal. Adaptation requires time, human. Modern space combat is decided in microseconds. Your chemical brains cannot process battlefield information fast enough to matter. Alina felt heat rising in her cheeks, but forced herself to remain calm. The machine consensus wasn't entirely wrong. Their artificial intelligence could process information thousands of times faster than human brains. Their ships responded to threats almost before those threats fully materialized. But Alina remembered something her first submarine commander had told her. The enemy's greatest strength often contains the seeds of their greatest weakness. The presentation continued with more displays of human technology. Each image prompted fresh rounds of gentle mockery. Zix-9 seemed particularly amused by Earth's missile defense systems. You use explosives to stop other explosives. How delightfully recursive. When Alina showed images of human space marines in their combat armor, the ethereal delegate pulsed with what her translator interpreted as confused curiosity. They wear metal shells for protection. Against what threats? Modern weapons ignore such primitive barriers entirely. The final part of Elena's presentation covered Earth's industrial capabilities and resource extraction methods. This at least received some respectful attention. Several species nodded approvingly at humanity's mining operations and manufacturing centers. Alina began to hope she might salvage something from this diplomatic disaster. But then Commander Thane spoke again, and Alina's hopes crumbled. The humans show impressive industrial capacity, he said, his scales now shifting to a golden color that indicated formal pronouncement. However, their military capabilities are clearly inadequate for the dangers of galactic civilization. The Trade Council cannot risk opening new routes through territories that cannot be properly defended. Zix-9's crystalline body flashed with agreement patterns. The Prism Collective concurs. Human space is currently protected only by primitive kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. Any moderately advanced raider fleet could overwhelm their defenses within hours. Alina felt the careful months of preparation crumbling around her. Earth needed these trade routes desperately. Without access to rare minerals and advanced materials from other worlds, humanity's expansion into space would slow to a crawl. But she could see the decision forming in the alien delegates' expressions. They weren't rejecting humanity out of malice. They genuinely believed human space was too dangerous to enter. The machine, consensus delegate's mechanical voice cut through her thoughts. Perhaps we could offer an alternative arrangement. The humans show promise as an industrial species. If they accept protection from Council Defense Forces, trade routes could be established under proper security. Protection? Alina knew what that meant from her diplomatic briefings. Other species had accepted Council protection before. They had become client states, their resources managed by more advanced civilizations, their military forces integrated into Council fleets under alien command. It meant giving up humanity's independence in exchange for scraps from the galactic table. The Council's offer is generous, Alina said carefully, but humanity has always preferred to handle its own defense. Commander Thane's scales shifted to deep red, which Elena's briefings had identified as either anger or concern. Captain, you cannot defend against threats you do not understand. The galaxy contains dangers that would make your worst nightmares seem pleasant. The Void Reapers alone have consumed 17 civilizations in the past century. Your metal bullets and chemical explosives would only feed their growth. Other delegates began mentioning threats Alina had never heard of. The entropy cult, which converted matter into pure chaos energy. The collective mind, which absorbed entire populations into its consciousness. The shadow fleets, which attacked from dimensions human science hadn't discovered. Each mention of galactic dangers made humanity seem smaller and more vulnerable. Alina could feel the weight of these cosmic threats pressing down on her shoulders. Earth's proudest warships suddenly seemed like paper boats facing a tsunami. But as the aliens continued describing the galaxy's dangers, Alina noticed something interesting. For all their advanced technology and superior weapons, these species lived in constant fear. They had built elaborate defense networks, established complex alliance systems, and maintained massive military forces, all to protect themselves from threats that seemed to multiply faster than they could be eliminated. Humanity's approach was different. Instead of building bigger walls, humans had always focused on becoming better hunters. Alina thought about her submarine service, about the long months spent moving silently through dark waters, studying enemy movements, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Human military doctrine had been shaped by thousands of years of warfare against other humans, the most dangerous predators in Earth's history. The session ended with the Council's formal decision. Humanity would be offered protection status, with limited trading rights. Earth's military would be integrated into Council Defense Forces under experienced alien command. Human ships would serve as support vessels for proper warships. It was everything Alina had feared and nothing humanity needed. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Alina heard fragments of their conversations through the translators. Such a shame about the humans. They seem like decent people, but their technology is hopeless. At least they'll be safe under Council protection. Better than letting them get themselves killed with those primitive weapons. But Alina also noticed something else. Several delegates were having quiet, urgent conversations about increased raider activity in their home systems. The same advanced technologies they had been boasting about seemed unable to stop mysterious attacks that were growing bolder and more frequent. Commander Thane approached her as the chamber emptied. His scales had shifted to a color Alina didn't recognize from her briefings, something between gold and silver that seemed to flicker with internal light. "Captain Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying a tone the translator rendered as reluctant respect. "I hope you understand that the Council's decision comes from genuine concern for humanity's welfare. The galaxy is far more dangerous than your..." Species realizes. Alina studied the massive reptilian being. Despite his condescending words earlier, she could see something like worry in his alien features. "Commander, may I ask you something off the record?" Thane's scales shifted slightly. "Speak freely. These raider attacks that have been increasing lately, have your advanced weapons been effective against them?" The question hung in the air. Between them, Thane's scales flickered through several colors before settling on a dark green that Alina instinctively associated with frustration. "The raiders use ... unconventional tactics," he said finally. "They seem to anticipate our responses and adapt their strategies accordingly. It's as if they understand our technology better than we do ourselves." Alina nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand the real situation. The galaxy's advanced civilizations had become dependent on their superior technology, but that same technology was becoming predictable. Any enemy that could learn their patterns would gain significant advantages. "Commander," she said quietly, "what if the problem isn't that the raiders are too advanced, but that your responses have become too sophisticated? Sometimes the best way to deal with a complex problem is a simple solution that no one expects." Thane stared at her for a long moment. His scales shifted through several colors before settling on deep purple, a color Alina had never seen him display before. According to her briefings, purple indicated deep thought or significant revelation. "Captain," he said slowly, speaking, "if the Council were to request unofficial assistance with this raider problem, would humanity be interested in providing consultation services?" Alina felt a cold smile touch her lips. The same smile she had worn 20 years ago when an enemy submarine commander had made the mistake of assuming her old, quiet vessel wasn't a threat. "Hypothetically," she replied, "humanity has always been happy to help our friends solve difficult problems." The Hunter awakens 3 weeks later. The CDF stealth frigate Silent Hunter drifted through the void between stars like a predator waiting for prey. Captain Alina Vasquez stood on the dimly lit bridge, watching displays that showed absolutely nothing on any of the galaxy's standard detection methods. That was exactly what she wanted. The Silent Hunter was not humanity's most impressive warship. At only 300 meters long, it was smaller than most galactic patrol boats. Its hull was angular and dark, designed to absorb rather than reflect sensor beams. Unlike the gleaming vessels favored by other species, the Hunter looked like it had been built from shadow and silence. Lieutenant Jake Chen, Elena's tactical officer, looked up from his console with the kind of grin that had once made enemy soldiers very nervous during his Special Forces days. "Captain, we're getting some interesting readings from the Kepler 442 system. Looks like our mysterious raiders decided to make another appearance." Alina moved to study the tactical display. The Kepler 442 system was home to a quantum monk monastery world, a peaceful planet where one of the galaxy's most advanced species pursued philosophical studies. It should have been protected by defensive systems that could manipulate reality itself at the quantum level. The fact that raiders were attacking it anyway told Alina everything she needed to know about their capabilities. "Distance to intercept?" she asked. 6 hours at silent running speed, Chen replied. "We could be there in 2 hours if we go to maximum burn, but that would light us up on every sensor in 3 systems." Alina shook her head. Speed wasn't the answer here. The galaxy's other military forces had been responding to raider attacks with overwhelming force and lightning-fast deployments. All that it accomplished was giving the raiders advance warning and time to escape. The Hunter would try a different approach, maintain silent running, I want to see what these raiders do when they think no one is watching. The silent hunter slipped through space like a ghost, its advanced stealth systems making it effectively invisible to the detection methods used by galactic civilization. Alina had insisted on this design approach, despite skepticism from Earth's engineers. Most human warships were built for direct confrontation, heavy armor, powerful weapons, and robust systems that could take damage and keep fighting. The Hunter was different. It was built for the kind of warfare Alina had learned in Earth's submarine service: patience, stealth, and striking from unexpected angles. As they approached the Kepler 442 system, the Hunter's passive sensors began picking up signs of battle. Energy discharges lit up the electromagnetic spectrum as quantum monk defensive systems engaged unknown attackers. Chen coordinated with the ship's sensor operators to build a picture of what was happening. "Captain, I'm reading 12 raider vessels in close orbit around the monastery world. There. This is strange. They're using a combination of technologies I've never seen before. Some of those ships are firing Vorthon gravity disruptors. Others are using prism collective energy matrices, and I'm seeing at least 3 different types of shielding systems." Alina frowned. That didn't match any intelligence reports about raider activities. Most pirate organizations used crude, improvised weapons and relied on speed and numbers rather than advanced technology. These raiders seem to have access to the best military equipment from multiple galactic civilizations. Any response from the monastery's defenses? Chen's expression grew troubled. "That's the weird part, Captain. The quantum monks should be able to alter probability fields to make enemy weapons miss their targets. But the raiders seem to be compensating for every defensive measure in real time. It's like they know exactly what the monks are going to do before they do it." The tactical situation became clearer as the Hunter drifted closer to the battle zone. The raiders weren't just using advanced technology, they were using it with perfect coordination and tactical awareness. Alina had seen similar patterns during her submarine service when facing enemy fleets that shared real-time intelligence networks. But something bothered her about the raider movements. They were too perfect, too coordinated. Human military doctrine taught that perfect coordination usually meant centralized control, and centralized control meant a single point of failure that could be exploited. "Jake, are you seeing any command and control communications between those raider ships?" Chen bent over his console, adjusting settings and filters. "Negative, Captain. No radio traffic, no quantum entanglement channels, no gravitational wave. Communications, but they're moving like they're linked by something. Formation changes happen simultaneously across all 12 vessels." But as she watched longer, Alina began to notice subtle patterns. The ships moved together, but they moved as if controlled by a single mind rather than multiple independent commanders. When one ship detected a threat, all ships responded simultaneously. When orbital mechanics required formation adjustments, all ships began moving at exactly the same moment. It reminded Alina of something she had studied during her academy days. Swarm behavior in Earth's social insects. Ants and bees could coordinate complex activities without central command by responding to chemical signals and environmental cues. But they were vulnerable to tactics that disrupted their communication methods or confused their signal interpretation. "Jake, I want you to prepare a spread of hunter-killer drones. Program them for maximum stealth and equip them with neural disruption warheads." Chen looked puzzled. Neural disruption weapons were designed to interfere with organic nervous systems. They would be useless against mechanical targets. "Captain, Those weapons won't affect normal ship systems. I don't think we're dealing with normal ships, Lieutenant. And I have a feeling those raiders aren't operating their vessels the way we think they are. Alina ordered the hunter to approach the raider formation from the direction of the system's primary star. The stellar radiation would help mask their approach, and the raiders seemed to be concentrating their attention on threats coming from deeper space. When they reached optimal firing position, Alina gave the order to launch. 6 hunter-killer drones slipped away from the silent hunter like deadly seeds, their miniature stealth systems making them nearly impossible to detect. Alina had programmed them to approach different raider vessels from multiple angles, coordinating their attack to strike simultaneously. The drones reached their targets and detonated within seconds of each other. Neural disruption fields washed over 6 of the raider ships, designed to scramble organic nervous systems within a 50-meter radius. Alina held her breath, waiting to see what would happen. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The 6 targeted ships suddenly began flying erratically, their perfect coordination replaced by confused, wandering movements. But more importantly, the other 6 ships started showing signs of distress as well. Their formation began to break apart as they tried to compensate for the loss of their companions. "Captain," Chen said, his voice tight with excitement, "you were right. Those ships are being controlled by organic entities, not artificial intelligence or mechanical systems. But there's something else. The neural disruption is affecting ships we didn't even target." Alina smiled grimly. The raiders were using some kind of biological network to coordinate their activities. Disrupting part of the network was causing systemic failures throughout the entire formation. It was exactly the kind of vulnerability that human military doctrine was designed to exploit. All weapons target the ships showing the most distress. Fire when ready. The silent hunter's railguns spoke with mechanical precision, sending streams of tungsten penetrators toward the confused raider vessels. The kinetic projectiles were simple, primitive by galactic standards, but they were also nearly impossible to defend against using energy shields designed to stop plasma beams and gravity waves. 3 raider ships died in the first salvo, their hulls punctured by metal slugs traveling at significant fractions of light speed. The remaining raiders tried to reform their defensive positions, but their coordination was still disrupted by the neural interference. Alina pressed her advantage, ordering a second drone strike against the surviving raiders. This time she used conventional explosive warheads, but she programmed the drones to target specific ship systems rather than attempting to destroy entire vessels. The second wave of drones struck the raiders' communication arrays and sensor installations. Without their ability to share information, the remaining ships began operating as individual units rather than parts of a coordinated fleet. Their tactical effectiveness dropped dramatically as they lost their primary advantage. Chen monitored the battle from his tactical station, coordinating targeting data with the hunter's weapon systems. "Captain, the raiders are trying to retreat. Shall we pursue?" Alina considered the tactical situation. 6 of the 12 raider ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors were fleeing in different directions, no longer capable of coordinating their movements, but she had learned something much more valuable than a simple military victory. Negative, let them go. We need at least some of them alive to carry word back to their commanders. Over the next hour, Alina watched as the surviving raider ships limped away from the Kepler 442 system. The quantum monks on the monastery world had already begun broadcasting their gratitude across galactic communication networks, praising the mysterious force that had saved them from certain destruction. But Alina wasn't interested in praise. She was interested in the tactical intelligence her attack had revealed. The raiders were using biological entities to control their stolen ships. Possibly parasitic organisms that could interface directly with alien technology. That explained how they had been adapting so quickly to galactic defense measures. They weren't learning from experience. They were directly accessing the knowledge and memories of their hosts. Jake Chen finished compiling the battle data and approached Alina with a thoughtful expression. "Captain, those neural disruption weapons, how did you know they would work?" Alina turned away from the tactical display to face her tactical officer. "Jake, what's the first thing they teach you in Special Forces training?" "Know your enemy better than they know themselves," Chen replied automatically. "Exactly. The galaxy's military forces have been treating these raiders like a conventional threat. They've been responding with superior technology and overwhelming force, but sometimes the best way to deal with a complex problem is the simplest solution. No one expects." Alina activated the Hunter's communication system and composed a message for transmission to Galactic Trade Station Omega-7. The message was brief and to the point. "Silent Hunter to Commander Thane. Raider, problem solved. Recommend immediate consultation on defensive strategies. Human tactical doctrine proves effective against biological control networks." 3 days later, Alina found herself back in the diplomatic chamber on Station Omega-7. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. The same alien delegates who had mocked human technology were now studying detailed reports of the Hunter's victory with something approaching reverence. Commander Thane's scales had settled into a deep gold color that Alina's cultural briefings identified as profound respect. "Captain Vasquez, I owe you and your species a formal apology. We underestimated both the threat we faced and humanity's ability to address it." Ambassador Zixnin's crystalline body flashed with patterns Alina now recognized as admiration rather than amusement. "The Prism Collective has reviewed your tactical approach extensively. Your use of neural disruption weapons against biological control systems shows remarkable insight into enemy capabilities." Alina accepted their praise with the same calm professionalism she had shown during their mockery weeks earlier. But internally, she felt a deep satisfaction. Humanity had proven its worth not through superior technology, but through superior thinking. The machine consensus delegate's mechanical voice carried a tone Alina had never heard before. Something that sounded almost like wonder. "Captain, our analysis indicates that these biological controllers have been operating in our space for several years, possibly decades. They have been learning our tactical responses and adapting their strategies accordingly." "How did you recognize their true nature so quickly?" Alina thought about her answer carefully. "In human military history, we learned that the most dangerous enemies are often the ones who can think like you do. These parasites were using your own knowledge against you, turning your strengths into weaknesses. Sometimes the best defense against a sophisticated attack is a simple response the enemy doesn't expect." Over the following weeks, Alina found herself working closely with galactic military forces to develop new defensive strategies against the biological raiders. Human tactical doctrines, once dismissed as primitive, became the foundation for a new approach to space combat that emphasized unpredictability and adaptability over raw technological superiority. The Silent Hunter became the prototype for a new class of stealth vessels, built using human design principles but incorporating the best technology galactic civilization could offer. Other species began adopting human training methods, learning to think like predators rather than relying solely on superior equipment. But perhaps most importantly, humanity earned its place in the galactic community not as a protected client state, but as an equal partner whose unique perspective and hard-won experience made the entire galaxy safer and stronger. Alina stood on the observation deck of Station Omega 7, watching human and alien ships training together in the space around the station. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about underestimating quiet strengths and simple solutions, and humanity had learned that sometimes the best way to earn respect was to show rather than tell. Over the following weeks, Alina found herself working closely with galactic military forces to develop new defensive strategies against the biological raiders. Human tactical doctrines, once dismissed as primitive, became the foundation for a new approach to space combat that emphasized unpredictability and adaptability over raw technological superiority. The Silent Hunter became the prototype for a new class of stealth vessels, built using human design principles but incorporating the best technology galactic civilization could offer. Other species began adopting human training methods, learning to think like predators rather than relying solely on superior equipment. But perhaps most importantly, humanity earned its place in the galactic community not as a protected client state, but as an equal partner whose unique perspective and hard-won experience made the entire galaxy safer and stronger. Alina stood on the observation deck of Station Omega 7, watching human and alien ships training together in the space around the station. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about underestimating quiet strengths and simple solutions, and humanity had learned that sometimes the best way to earn respect was to show rather than tell. The stars looked different now, not like distant, dangerous mysteries, but like a vast ocean waiting for human ships to explore its depths. The Silent Hunter and vessels like it would be there when exploration turned to adventure and adventure turned to conflict, because humanity had finally shown the galaxy what they had always known about themselves. They were not just survivors or builders or dreamers. They were hunters, and they were very, very good at their job. Asterisk.